Hi, I'm Sean Vanneman. I wrote the bulk of 100% of this game.
Hey, I'm Jake Rodkin. I did a lot of level design, UI design, and worked with everyone on the story for Firewatch.
The game has this weird structure that Chris and I talk about in another tape. This is the first thing I wrote, was this opening of the game that jumps between Henry's life and the trip out to the woods. And I used a little product called Twine to do that, which you can download and use. It's just a very simple choose-your-own-adventure tool. The simplest way to program a video game that one can then share with friends and play.
I think we were worried that the team would sort of perceive Henry as a blank slate, as sort of a generic game player protagonist, and we wanted to make sure, or we wanted to get in everyone's mindset, you're playing as a specific guy with a specific life.
Yeah, there's a reason when you play video games that a lot of your protagonists have amnesia, because it's really difficult when you're driving a character around who knows things about their life, or his or her life, that you, who you ostensibly are that person, don't know. So, yeah, we kept trying to write an opening of the game that happened sort of like weeks into Henry's experience, and then quickly realized that it was like, well, why would he not be able to say X? Well, because his relationship with his wife is Y. So, but the player doesn't know that. Yeah. And this was the quickest way to get everybody on board, was to just take the thing that I wrote that answered the question, I think, for Jane and you at the beginning, which was like, who is Henry? And I would write these character profiles that were really bad. And then I went, what if I just let you play a thing? And then you can figure out who he is. And we held on to that until we had the idea to put into the game.
It means that when you're playing Firewatch and Henry and Delilah start talking about Henry's wife, you don't have to learn it through his dialogue, because you made the choices that brought him where he is today.
Hi, I'm Sean Vanneman. I wrote the bulk of 100% of this game.
Hey, I'm Jake Rodkin. I did a lot of level design, UI design, and worked with everyone on the story for Firewatch.
The game has this weird structure that Chris and I talk about in another tape. This is the first thing I wrote, was this opening of the game that jumps between Henry's life and the trip out to the woods. And I used a little product called Twine to do that, which you can download and use. It's just a very simple choose-your-own-adventure tool. The simplest way to program a video game that one can then share with friends and play.
I think we were worried that the team would sort of perceive Henry as a blank slate, as sort of a generic game player protagonist, and we wanted to make sure, or we wanted to get in everyone's mindset, you're playing as a specific guy with a specific life.
Yeah, there's a reason when you play video games that a lot of your protagonists have amnesia, because it's really difficult when you're driving a character around who knows things about their life, or his or her life, that you, who you ostensibly are that person, don't know. So, yeah, we kept trying to write an opening of the game that happened sort of like weeks into Henry's experience, and then quickly realized that it was like, well, why would he not be able to say X? Well, because his relationship with his wife is Y. So, but the player doesn't know that. Yeah. And this was the quickest way to get everybody on board, was to just take the thing that I wrote that answered the question, I think, for Jane and you at the beginning, which was like, who is Henry? And I would write these character profiles that were really bad. And then I went, what if I just let you play a thing? And then you can figure out who he is. And we held on to that until we had the idea to put into the game.
It means that when you're playing Firewatch and Henry and Delilah. Hi, it's Jake again.
Hey, I'm Chris Remo.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Hi there. I was a game designer and the music composer on Firewatch.
Nice.
So you're hearing now the first piece of interactive music that went into Firewatch. The first piece of music that actually
responds to what you're doing in the game?
Exactly, yeah. So this is a piece of music that's divided into technically 6 parts. And what's happening is, as you're playing through this introductory sequence, when you hit certain points in the narrative, it sends a signal to Wise, which is the name of the audio middleware we're using. And then when Wise gets that signal, it waits until the next sort of musically appropriate transition point, and then when it hits that, it smoothly transitions into the next section of music. And so it creates the effect that you're just listening to one big long piece of music that just happens to be timed very nicely to your playthrough.
It just happens to get sadder and sadder at the exact rate that your life gets sadder and sadder.
Yeah, exactly. This was a challenging process, both because I had no idea what the music should sound like, and also because it was the first interactive piece of music in the game. So the technical sort of just how does this work was also a part of it. But as it turned out, this music was changed. I mean, Jake, you may remember this. This music changed relatively little over the course of development in comparison to a lot of.
I think it started off as maybe 3 pieces and it expanded out to 5 over development. But other than that, it's one of the first things dropped in, shipped. Get ready to hear about that a lot on this commentary.
I'm Nels Anderson, and I was a designer and gameplay programmer on Firewatch.
I am Jane Ng, and I worked on the 3D environment art in Firewatch.
So you're likely standing at the base of your home away from home. Your home in the wilderness. For all intents and purposes, more or less, this is basically just a real straight-up tower like they existed out in the woods, right?
Yeah, I think it is Portland. There's somebody in Portland who was very good about archiving a lot of blueprints about various type of fire lookouts of the state, and we got some, and that's how we started off building the Firewatch. I mean, the lookout tower, just by looking through how they were actually built.
It's slightly taller than a real one, right?
We had to make quite a bit of adjustments because, for example, the stairway you see here, normally fire lookout stairways are not on the outside, but for more interesting gameplay and views for the player, we opted to change that. But ultimately we still wanted the tower to feel like a real tower, so we had to figure stuff like, hey, how does the plumbing actually work? How do they get water? Stuff like that. It actually is very important for a real tower.
And if you go look around the base of the tower, you will actually see a big old plastic cistern.
We are not a survival game of any sort, but it is important to make sure that all that stuff is actually thought out, so the space feels realistic.
Right. You don't want someone playing the game being like, wait a minute. There's no how does this guy drink? How is he not dead?
When I normally play video games, I'm always interested in stuff like, hey, where's the bathroom? Here we have the outhouse and you can go anywhere, but stuff like water is very important. So in a real fire lookout situation, what they do is they will use a cistern, and they will capture rainwater from the roof, and you will actually see that we actually have a little pipe down from the roof. And we even have what they call a first flush filter being there, which is actually what they use.
That's my favorite kind of filter, really.
I had to look up what do they do, because once you go, okay, you collect rainwater from the roof, it won't be all nasty, and then hey, somebody already figured that out on how to collect rainwater. What do you know?
We actually visited a number of different lookout towers as we were researching the game, and it was always very satisfying to see elements of things we saw in the real world and make their way back into the game, and vice versa.
So we also made sure to have a tab here, like a little faucet, where you can actually get water from the cistern.
Yeah, if you click on it, it will play an animation of a hand gripping a knob, and water comes out for 2 seconds. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it's there.
I think for a while we actually were thinking, should we just let the player turn on the water? Or then what happens if the water just runs out? And then James had a very good idea of just going just make one animation that you turn on the faucet and turn it off immediately, just so that you know, hey, there's water in here and you won't die. That's Henry.
I'm Nels Anderson, and I was a designer and gameplay programmer on Firewatch.
I am Jane Ing, and I worked on the 3D environment art in Firewatch.
So you're likely standing at the base of your home away from home. Your home in the wilderness. For all intents and purposes, more or less, this is basically just a real straight-up tower like they existed out in the woods, right?
Yeah, I think it is Portland. There's somebody in Portland who was very good about archiving a lot of blueprints about various type of fire lookouts of the state, and we got some, and that's how we started off building the the lookout tower, just by looking through how they were actually built.
It's slightly taller than a real one, right?
We had to make quite a bit of adjustments because, for example, the stairway you see here, normally fire lookout stairways are not on the outside, but for more interesting gameplay and views for the player, we opted to change that. But ultimately we still wanted the tower to feel like a real tower, so we had to figure stuff like, hey, how does the plumbing actually work? How do they get water? Stuff like that. It actually is very important for a real tower.
And if you go look around the base of the tower, you will actually see a big old plastic cistern.
We are not a survival game of any sort, but it is important to make sure that all that stuff is actually thought out, so the space feels realistic.
Right. You don't want someone playing the game being like, wait a minute, there's no how does this guy drink? How is he not dead?
When I normally play video games, I'm always interested in stuff like, hey, where's the bathroom? Here we have the outhouse and you can go anywhere, but stuff like water is very important. So in a real fire lookout situation, what they do is they will use a cistern, and they will capture rainwater from the roof, and you will actually see that we actually have a little pipe down from the roof, and we even have what they call a first flush filter being there, which is actually what they use.
That's my favorite kind of filter, really.
I had to look up what do they do, because once you go, okay, you collect rainwater from the roof, it won't be all nasty, and then hey, somebody already figured that out on how to collect rainwater. What do you know?
We actually visited a number of different lookout towers as we were researching the game, and it was always very satisfying to see elements of things we saw in the real world and make their way back into the game, and vice versa.
So we also made sure to have a tab here, like a little faucet, where you can actually get water from the cistern.
Yeah, if you click on it, it will play an animation of a hand gripping a knob and water comes out for 2 seconds. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it's there.
I think for a while we actually were thinking, should we just let the player turn on the water? Or then what happens if the water just runs out? And then James had a very good idea of just going just make one animation that you turn on the faucet and turn it off immediately, just so that hey, there's water in here and you won't die. That's Henry.
Hey, it's Chris again.
Oh, it's Jake.
So if you're listening to this right now, it's because you went off the beaten path really early in the game. Obviously, you probably did that because the commentary map told you to. But
you don't need a map to tell you to go here. You could just go here.
We had to. One of the biggest challenges in this game was throughout the entire narrative, keeping in mind that really players can pretty much go anywhere that they've unlocked on the map at any time. And sometimes that's actually really inconvenient for the narrative of the game. We had to come up with a lot of excuses for why you couldn't go to certain places at certain times, or if we couldn't think of an excuse.
Some call it an excuse, others call it a thrilling narrative event.
Right. So, for instance, where you are right now, if you keep walking in that direction, you will sort of cross the river, but then be unable to go any further.
There's a lot of dense underbrush.
And then about halfway through the game, when a big fire happens, that area is burned out, and you can walk past it into Cottonwood Creek and
Pork Pond, etc.
And all those areas. Yeah, it was really, really hard to think of justifications like that weren't completely implausible.
Yep.
And so we actually have relatively few cases of that in the game.
Yeah, if we couldn't come up with a good way to keep a player out of a space, we instead flipped the other direction and went, well, what can we do to support it and make it interesting? On this day, before the story started, not a whole lot, but we thought it was fun to point out that you can wander a lot more of the map than you might even think at the very, very, very start of the game.
Yep, and then especially once you get ropes, that increases a lot more. So just as you get these items that allow you to explore more of the world, we had to face these increasingly complicated and frustrating design challenges of how does the whole game not break all the time now. It was interesting and difficult, but also cool.
Yep, bye.
Hello, Two Forks Tower.
Hello? Whoever this is?
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
I'm Delilah.
Yeah, that's what the guy said on the phone.
So, what's wrong with you?
Excuse me?
People take this job to get away from something. So, what's wrong?
What's wrong with you?
That's a great idea. Go ahead.
Look, I just hiked for 2 days, so I don't really follow whatever it is you're doing right now.
You take a stab at what's wrong with me.
Fine, then can I sleep forever?
Sure, buddy. Okay, now go ahead.
Okay, you're probably just rebelling against a mom who wishes you had given her grandkids, by the sound of your voice, at least 15 years ago. You come out here and it really grinds her gears and you love it. Can I sleep now?
Well, she also says I fuck immature men, but in my defense, who wouldn't want a 28-year-old with ambition and energy and some fire in his belly in bed?
Me, I'm going now.
Just a second, now it's my turn.
Okay, good night, bye.
Let's see. I don't know anything about you, but 9 times out of 10, folks out here simply got dumped.
Huh, is that it?
Close?
Good night.
Good night. Welcome to the job. Morning, Henry. Well, I guess good afternoon. You probably slept like a rock. Anyway, there's still a few hours of daylight to get some work in. I can see you at your desk, so call me when you're ready.
Nels, it feels like you on the team did the most sort of digging about what the real job is like, what is in the actual space, and then checked us against reality when we kind of went off the reservation.
In general, I really like doing research. That's sort of a thing I've enjoyed on all the projects I've worked on. So for this, a bunch of folks on the team read this great book called Fire Season by Philip Connors, which is kind of like a memoir-ish thing from this dude who still is an active fire lookout even today. But I also just I called up the Ministry of Forests and Natural Resources here in British Columbia and got redirected to like 3 increasingly small Ministry of Forest offices until someone just gave me literally the phone number of this cool old lady who had once been a fire lookout. So I just kind of chatted with her for like an hour and a half just about what doing the job was like. The reason why the game is not a simulation of being a fire lookout is because what everyone talks about is that the number one challenge with the job is that it is incredibly, impossibly boring.
Because you can't, like, read a book. You can't, like, be doing other things, right? Like,
Not really.
Yeah.
At the end of day 3, where Delilah mentions it's like, Kenny's like, well, what do I do for the rest of the summer? She's like, you sit in that chair and you look out the window. That is actually what fire lookouts really do. So all the folks I talked to said, like, figuring out ways to combat boredom is the number one thing. The lady I talked to, she said she did a whole lot of needlepoint and cross stitch because you can do that without looking at your hands very much. Obviously, like, lookouts are also responsible for doing, maintenance on their towers. But again, it's like not maintenance because some crazy Yahoo smashed up your tower. It's maintenance like, oh, the paint is kind of flaking off. Better paint it. Or these trees have grown too tall, so I need to chop them down. Not, I'm chopping down trees to form a weird log bridge.
The main takeaway from whenever we would talk to someone who had done this job is, why would you make a game about that? That is the most boring time of my entire life. So hopefully we showed them how.
It feels like people who do this job like fall into two camps, right? They're the people who think they can do it and can't hack it and bail after like a month or two. People like Jack Kerouac, who tried to do this and wrote about it in Desolation Angels, and then he went crazy from a lack of cigarettes and then left. Or the people who kind of enjoy the solitude and then figure out ways to deal with it. But, we do have, like, a lot of the window dressing for the stuff people use. Like, other folks I talk to, it's like, what do you do? Well, we read a lot of books. And we, like, trade the books between the different lookouts through rangers and stuff like that. So, of course, Firewatch has a crap ton of weird books in it. Stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
So now you're ready to work.
I'm new. Wanted to look around.
Honestly, on my first day, I did the same thing. So anyway, this is the Osborne Firefinder, invented in 1914 by W.B.
Osborne?
You use this to spot, you guessed it, What the fuck?
What is it?
Nothing. You use this to... Oh, fuck me!
Good God, language, lady.
Out your west-facing window. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Are those fucking fireworks?
Whoa, that's not legal, right?
No. You need to get down there right now and stop them. Fire danger is through the fucking roof.
Is that really my job?
Your job is whatever I say it is. Look, the closest ranger is like 2 days away. Go down there and set him straight.
Do I write him a ticket?
Easy there, Dirty Harry.
Well?
Get going. You'll probably need a rope to get down the shale between you and the lake, if I remember right. There should be one in the supply box on the way. The code is 1234. It's actually that for all of them.
Convenient.
That's one word for it.
Chris again here.
Hey, and Jake, congratulations, player. You have completed the Teen Loop.
Oh man, that's true. This is the end of what was originally called teenloop.unity, a scene file in our game engine Unity, because we thought that was just going to be the file corresponding to the first
this piece of game that you've just played.
Yeah, this first big objective.
But then we kept building, so all of Firewatch is in fact saved inside of a file called teenloop.unity. So
Yep,
know that for
game.
the rest of your play experience, you are inside of the Teen Loop.
Yeah. This part of the game, you probably are right now if you're listening to these commentary notes basically in sequence. The music is either about to kick in or has just kicked in. It's dark. You're finding your tower has been broken into. This, I really strongly remember feeling when this went into the game and had the music, which was actually the first music implemented in the entire game. All this stuff together felt to me like the first real moment of assertive tension in the game, and it felt really crazy.
Yeah, because we had our environment system working for the first time, so the sky turned to nighttime,
Yep.
and our world logic allowed the tower to switch into its broken into state just when you were off in the world for the first time. And then when that music finally came in, we're like, oh, wow, okay, this is a world that's alive and can be tense and cinematic.
Yep.
And all of it happened without us ever having to cut the camera. I remember we were all very proud and stoked of that.
For sure.
That was like right before we first demoed the game, I think, at Penny Arcade Expo.
Yeah, because the end of day one was the end of the first demo.
Yeah.
Right before this, there's the moment with the creepy guy in the woods, and that was sort of a moment of tension. But that's also arguably maybe not, because it's immediately deflated by Delilah.
Right, but this you're like,
was like,
holy crap.
Okay, I remember feeling kind of nervous about it because it was like the game is declaring this is a tense moment, and if it falls flat, we have failed. We can't like make a joke to diffuse it. And I think it basically worked, and it was a real relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ba, 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 ba.
So it's just the outhouse then, in terms of going to the bathroom?
You're a man, Henry. You can go wherever you want. Well, number one at least. And, full disclosure, I pee wherever I want as well.
Hi there, it's Jake.
And Chris again.
Hey, so here we are in the cache box clearing, or at least I guess that's what we call it. There's a lot of cache boxes in Firewatch, but this was the first one that we placed into the game.
For a long time, this was the cache box.
It was the cache box, even though we knew we wanted to have more. This area was actually one of the first areas that we built out to any degree that looks like a piece of the world. It was a really good proving ground for us. Like when me and Nels Anderson were grayboxing the world at the very beginning, we tried a million different things. Like maybe this was on the edge of a cliff, or maybe it was a secret that you had to find. And I think it was Sean who suggested that he really wanted it to feel like a warm, sort of enclosed space, like you've stumbled onto a little glen and you want to stay there for a while, which I think makes sense because we wanted people to actually stop and poke around and have it not feel like the woods.
This was an area with a lot of firsts. I remember this really ended up looking a lot like Ollie's concept art in a way I think that felt like an accomplishment when it all got built out. It was also the first audio I implemented in the entire game, I believe.
The Foley on the locks and the lid?
Right, exactly.
Oh, this was also, the cache box was also our proving ground for detailed object interaction with Henry animating the lock. And also, there's an exit out if you back up and turn left. That was the first time I prototyped one-way drops and also any like sort of secret paths, because the way that you cross the canyon also showed up here, and I didn't tell anyone on the team about it for like months, and people only noticed it once they started playing the back half of the game, and it was very fulfilling for me.
Nice.
Cache box.
Cache box, land of firsts and secrets.
That's the state flag of cache boxes.
I found the supply box.
Great.
So are there a lot of these out in the woods?
Yeah, we got them all over the Shoshone. It saved us a lot of back and forth from the trailhead. Don't take all the good stuff.
Yeah, all right. I tracked down that rope. It was right where you said.
Great. So you should be set to get down to the lake.
People just stuff these things with old food? That's how you get bears.
Those boxes are bear-proof. I wouldn't worry about it.
Wow, there's an old, I think it's called a medicine wheel out here.
Yeah, it was made by Crow American Indians hundreds of years ago. There are lots of small ones. Have you ever been to Medicine Wheel Monument over in the Bighorns?
Well, I sure haven't.
Well, it's worth a 3-hour detour on the way home in August.
Neat. I'll keep it in mind.
The radio went on a real evolutionary journey. I don't know if you remember back at the very beginning when we all got together to make the game. We got together in December, like the first week of December, and we said, well, we're definitely going to take Christmas break, but what can we make in 2 weeks with this crew in Unity, an engine we've never used before? And we started starting with the radio mechanic, and I quickly wrote like a mystery about an FBI agent looking for a kidnapper in the woods, and then you had like a dispatcher who was like, go to this place and look for this. Oh, I think he left. And I think that's when we sort of proved out that looking at things and pointing at them the way you would like in a shooter, but then getting options to talk about them was the thing we were going to do.
That's kind of where the radio mechanic is so different from most conversation systems in games, right? Because most game conversation systems like, oh, you're standing next to this guy, so you can talk to him now, and you will be able to talk about things that have recently happened to you. But since it's a radio, it's like you could be anywhere, anytime, talking about whatever you're looking at. So even as we started to like do that initial prototyping, we sort of realized like, oh, that's very interesting. Also, this is really complicated and very different from how most games do dialogue.
Yeah, when you're standing in front of a character, you just sort of have the like very like binary rule of I am standing in front of a character in an adventure game, I can talk. I walk away, I can't. When you change that up and you can talk about things wherever because the proximity to that character is no longer relevant, you start to find really weird cases. Like, what do you do when you want to talk about an idea or a sound you just heard, a smell? So then we had to sort of like breaking the radio mechanic into the realm of like the intangible. And I don't think that really came on until much later.
Yeah, we got like, I think during that prototype we got the very initial vestiges of it, but in that initial prototype, it was so simple where it's like, oh, if you're looking at this weird stone head, you can like push the one button to play this crappy audio top of "Oh hi Mark" from Tommy Wiseau's The Room, or you can push 2 to say "Oh hi Denny" instead.
That was the darkest time of development for me.
It was the most wonderful time
because that movie gives me real physical illness. When we had mapped the radio mechanic to 2 lines from The Room, I was in a bad way about that.
I enjoyed it greatly.
I know you did. I know you did. Jake,
Oh, hey, Sean.
you did a neat thing here in the game that I like a lot, which is when you make a dialogue choice with Delilah about what this dangerous hill should be called. It shows up on your map, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, when we were putting the map system together, well, actually, the map weirdly was one of the latest things, one of the final things to come into the game as a fully fleshed out piece. But an upside of that is we built the map using a lot of tools we already had. For instance, the system that checks which things you haven't talked about, which things you haven't found in the game. Use the same variable list as our speech system. So when I was putting this together, I realized, oh, not only can I put a mark down on the map when Henry finds it or talks about it, but I can totally look at the same tools we use for dialogue and figure out what the player said and put it on the map. And the end result felt really natural. I actually wish we'd gone a little deeper on it in the game, but I'm really happy with what's in there right now. Also, please name this shitty boss is going to get me killed, because that's objectively the best name for the hill.
Is that your handwriting?
Yeah, you got to cram that in there, but it's still readable.
This shale slide is steep. How do you expect me to get down this?
I don't remember it being that bad. It's not even named on our topos.
What about shitty boss is gonna get me killed hill?
Oh, is that Absorka Indian? Maybe Creek?
That's actually English for not in my job description. How do you expect me to get down this?
Well, did you get that rope?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, just lash it to something nearby and take it slow.
Hey, I'm going the right way if I'm at the shale slide, right? Toward the fireworks?
You're not lost. Those fireworks are going off to the west of you. It's down the slide and across the meadow, okay?
Nope. No! Oh. Hey,
What the hell's wrong with you?
my shitty boss almost got me killed.
First, your boss is a delight. Secondly, Jesus, what exactly happened?
My rope snapped coming down the shale slide.
You didn't break anything, did you?
No, I think I'll make it.
Well, be careful for Christ's sake.
It is a hell of a nice camping spot down here by the lake.
I haven't been down there in years, but yeah, Jonesy Lake area is perfect.
Hi, this is Ollie Moss, and I was the art director on Firewatch.
I'm Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Let's talk about this teen
Let's
party
talk about
zone.
this. Let's talk about the Teen Zone. So the Teen Zone is one of the first areas that we used as a sort of art test to see how we would go about building the rest of the game.
We knew from the pretty early on that, like, on day one, you will start from the tower, and you will have to head down to the lake, and somewhere in between, you will see some teens, and they're partying. And so we call this the teen zone, because this is where all the teen stuff is.
Yeah, and it was important to us that the reveal that it was a group of teens was communicated through the level design. So the idea was that you just kind of like walk through some trees and burst out into this scene where a campfire was still burning.
And you had a pretty strong idea of what you wanted to look like.
Yeah, I just wanted to put some big angular rocks in there, which is basically the like my modus operandi for the entire game. But we wanted to have a big angular sort of rock, which became known as Pride Rock because it looked so much like the rock from The Lion King.
We did name that Pride Rock, didn't we? That rock does serve as a very strong landmark pretty early in the game, and it kind of does point the player in the right direction.
Exactly. Should we talk a little bit about our process for designing these areas?
So in the beginning, when we just have like no concept art, we will just mock it out with just gray literally just gray boxes and a gray terrain. And then we will take screenshots and give it to Ollie to be like, please pretty this up, Ollie.
Oh well, first of all, I'll do a terrible garbage sketch and pitch it to the team, and if people like the gist of it, then we'll go away and do a bit more of a detailed drawing, and then you would go.
Yeah, we'll add in some more shapes, and then we just keep going back and forth with paint overs from Ollie.
And then it's just a sort of tennis, really, just back and forth between the two of us until everyone's happy with what we have.
Yeah.
Finding a bunch of empty beer cans. They threw them all over hell.
The idiots down at the lake?
Yeah, them. I just found where they're hanging out. What do you know? People with shitty manners drink shitty beer.
What, you don't like a cold Musqua Light on a hot day?
No, I do. But then again, I didn't say my manners were any good. Better than these fucking litter bugs, though, that's for sure. They left their packs tied up here.
Don't fuck with them. The last thing we need is some hikers filing a report about harassment.
Oh, look, they decided to have a campfire, too.
You know, they color-coded the fire danger signs in case people were illiterate. But I guess that doesn't take into account just plain stupid, does it?
They left half a bottle of whiskey. Decent stuff.
Drunk pyromaniacs. Fucking great.
Found the fireworks. They didn't even try to hide them.
Ugh. Well, confiscate them.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm not the maid. Well, they left their clothes out to dry. It looks like two people. What if they're naked?
Won't that be exciting? Look, they're obviously still there, so tell them off and then head back.
I found a bra.
A nudie pyromaniac. Remain professional.
There are panties.
There are what?
I don't want to say that word again.
Why, 'cause you're 12?
My name is Patrick Ewing. I worked on tools and gameplay programming.
The teens, Patrick.
Let's open some old wounds here.
This is like going back to like an old battleground and being like on these hallowed grounds.
Yeah,
bad
I died on
things
this hill.
happened. I died on this hill.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the most complex interactions in the game, if not the most, right?
Yeah.
And it was in the game from the very first vertical slice we did, and then I think we kind of added to it as we played through it and saw like, oh, we should be able to throw the boombox in the lake, obviously, right? Okay, the teens need to react to the boombox being in the lake. Oh, but then they should also react to you putting it down.
What you should do if you're making a video game is build relatively ironclad, predictable AI and systems that react to inputs. But instead, we built a series of relatively flimsy state machines that were like, if this, but not when, and also if.
Right.
And we're able to create this scene as designed. And Patrick was sort of the shepherd of this scene. So whenever anything would break, if you were to throw the boombox and the teens were not to respond, or you leave with the boombox and they would talk about something else, it was Patrick's job to ferret into the
Right.
state machine and
Right.
figure out what was going on.
Yeah, and I'm happy with how it turned out. There are so many different ways that this scene can play out now, depending on what you choose to do. Do you throw the fireworks at them? Do you talk to them and then start messing up their stuff and throwing it in? And it ends up being pretty like believable. They feel like real characters. It's just such a crazy spaghetti code in the back end that I'm always terrified when I see someone play through it, that there's some interaction that we didn't think about.
That right
Yeah.
now the player is interacting with the teens in a way that is completely not by the book. And
I mean, luckily we
beads of
haven't...
sweat or building on your brow.
Yeah, I think it's just a PTSD response at this point. We would see the bug reports if this was actually still breakable.
Yeah.
I found them in the lake.
Skinny dipping.
Yeah.
Oh boy, enjoy dealing with that.
Full stereo!
Whoa, hey, put that down. Seriously, it was expensive.
Fucking cool it with the fireworks.
Please just put it. You asshole!
Light another firework and it won't be your stereo I wreck.
Oh, fuck you, psycho.
Yeah, fuck you!
You'll fucking pay for this. You can't just harass girls in the woods. Let's get out of here.
Hey, that go okay?
I might have got a little hot.
What's a little hot?
Some of their personal property took a swim.
Ugh,
Well, I can't do anything about it now.
nope. Thanks for dealing with him, though. Seriously.
No problem. Well, this lake does seem like a good spot to swim, even if the last people to do so were assholes.
Yeah, right now, though, it's all snowmelt, so you'll freeze your balls off. But as hot as it's been, maybe that's a fair trade.
Starting to feel like it. I found a sweatshirt from the University of Eastern Colorado.
There's a University of Eastern Colorado?
I really don't think there is.
Why would somebody make that up?
Right, and then put it on a sweatshirt.
The world's a weird place.
Hello, my name is Erin Yvette, and I'm the voice of Chelsea.
Hi, my name is Nikki Rapp, and I'm the voice of Lily.
And we're the drunk teens in the lake.
The obnoxious, skinny dipping, drunk, firework blasting teens.
This isn't the first time that you've played a Lily, though.
It is not. It's actually the third time I've played a Lily. My first Lily was Lily Zanotto in Psychonauts. And then I played the lovable Lily in The Walking Dead from Telltale. And now I'm Lily in Campos Santos' amazing game Firewatch.
I'm pretty sure the backstory behind my character's name is that it's Sean Vanneman's girlfriend's name. Slightly less
That's
backstory
pretty
for me
rad,
personally,
though.
but she's a cool person in real life, so it's fine. Although I
That's
wouldn't
good.
say that this character is based off of her because this character is. I guess I always pictured her being changing majors constantly in college because she's like can't decide what she wants to do. Like she's gone through like psychology and sociology and like and just constantly flunking out of everything.
Yeah,
So she's
I
just
think
switching until something sticks.
that's good you had ambition. I don't think my character really. I think she just was kind of drunk, cutting class.
This isn't the first time that they've done something like this.
Not at all. I think they were professionals at it. They were good. They were good at getting people to buy them booze, you know,
Totally.
that kind of a thing. That's good. Stand outside of 7-Eleven.
Whenever people ask me, like, oh, who did you play in Firewatch? It's like, oh, remember that time on day one where, like, you saw these silhouettes of, like, gyrating women? I was one of those. I
Yeah, there's,
probably
like,
called you a fucking
bras.
asshole. That was me.
That's a dubious honor, but it's still an honor.
Totally, yeah. A little tiny bit of a really cool game.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any chance of those kids getting a disease in this lake, like diphtheria or consumption or...
Consumption? Not if they're not 19th century chimney sweeps, no.
You know, whatever.
I mean, if they drank a bunch, Giardia maybe, but probably not this time of year.
Well, that's too bad.
So, I have a bit of a confession to make.
What is it?
Look, I was drunk last night when I welcomed you to the job.
Yeah, well, you're not the first boss to be guilty of that.
I know, I know I can get a little pushy, you know, putting you on the spot about why you're out here and stuff.
And you thought it was a good idea to get into your love life, I guess you'd call it?
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, you know, I'll try to make it up to you. Anyway, let me know when you get back to your lookout.
Hi, everyone. This is Ben Burbank. I'm a programmer at Campo Santo, predominantly doing graphics work and performance stuff. And I'm here with Jane.
Hi, I'm back.
And we're going to talk a little bit about, in general, how the world sort of streams in. This is a big open world game. There are, like, what, tens of thousands of trees somewhere in there?
Yeah, and we have how many chunks of the world that we stream in and out?
There are
I don't
100
remember.
plus.
Yeah, I think over 120.
One of the big challenges with that was we have to remove parts of it when you're not looking at it, because video game consoles and computers don't like to draw things that aren't seen.
Especially not a lot of trees.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for that little graphics card to do to try and draw all those that big forest. So the canyon's one of the spots where we have like obvious occlusion where you can't see most of the world. So we unload like the tower hub. The tower that you see in the canyon is fake. It's a small fake version.
Yeah.
Which is a common trick.
Yeah, so it's like a very low cost version of what it would actually be there.
One of the biggest challenges for Jane and people building the levels was figuring out line of sight. So how far can you see? Like if you have a point where you can see entirely across the map, we had to be very careful about what is actually loaded and what's actually drawing.
Yeah, so even though the canyon is pretty much a straight corridor, we had to put in some kinks in there. So, you know, like right sort of in the middle, there's a little area where you have to go around a rock. This is so that we could make sure you won't be looking at the lake when we basically delete it out of the world.
Yeah. The game also, you know, it's sort of non-linear. Like there's a linear story going on, but there's the ability for the player to just go backwards. So we also had to keep in mind like reverse line of sight and things like that, which is a little different than a traditional action game or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little puzzle game almost to figure out when we stream in and out things. So hopefully you don't notice any of it, because if you do, that's actually us not doing a great job.
You probably will notice it though sometimes. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, I can see my tower from far away.
Yeah, we experimented with hidden underground towers for a while, but we weren't really happy with the results.
So I'm with you all summer, huh? With whatever this sense of humor is.
Can you even believe? You're gonna love it.
Hey, I heard some thunder.
Yeah, I've got eyes on a storm out to the north.
Well, that's bad, right? Because of the lightning?
It just means we'll be busy. Hurry home, and try not to get hit by lightning.
Yeah, I'm not sure I got a lot of choice in getting struck down.
Especially not with your electric personality.
Ugh.
I see my joke did not spark your sense of humor.
Ugh.
What, you're not enjoying our current conversation?
Oh my God, lady.
The arc of our budding friendship.
How exactly are you in charge?
Aw, Henry, that's a good one.
You satisfied?
Yes.
Ah! Yeah, I get the sense that not everything in here is useful.
In the boxes? Why's that?
I don't really know what I'll do with the deer horn.
Firstly, they're called antlers. And secondly, stay out here long enough and you'll get creative.
What's in this cave down here?
In Thunder Canyon?
Thunder Canyon?
Hey, I didn't name it. But in the cave, I don't know, rocks? NFS tells people not to go too far in there. It's pretty dangerous.
So
I say, fuck it. You're a grown man, you can go where you want.
great. Used to go caving with someone back in Colorado. She loved it. Might be great to explore it sometime this summer.
Well, that could be fun. Obviously, be very careful.
It doesn't seem that dangerous. Whoa, whoa! Oh, no!
Henry!
Seriously, it's completely fine in here.
God damn it.
Hello? Oh!
Hi, I'm Jane. We're back.
And I'm Ollie.
Let's talk about this cave, Ollie.
Oh, let's not.
This cave really gave us all quite a bit of headache, actually. I was actually kind of having a mini panic attack because one of the hardest things to light in games actually is any area that's sort of half indoor and half outdoor, and this cave is a pain in the butt to light.
It is. Well, having we thought you'd be an old pro at this, having worked on a game called The Cave. But yeah, it caused a lot of problems in terms of the logic gating of the environment switches, because every time the time of day changes in the game, it then like sets that time of day.
Because there's no doorway really.
So the way the cave is lit, it actually just changes the time of day in the whole game. So like when you hit a trigger, if you could somehow magically transport yourself back outside the cave, you'd see like the sun spinning through the sky, the sky changing, and it was really hard to make that process invisible to the player and make it
Yeah.
feel natural.
Not to mention that when you're inside the cave, everything also has to look really dark. And we use a method called image-based lighting throughout the game. And that basically means that all the objects, like all the trees and rocks, just look out to the sky to see what their lighting should be. And so in the cave, we actually had to do sort of like a fake sky for anything inside that is just pure black. So the lighting inside would be appropriately dark.
But still navigatable to a player without the
Exactly.
flashlight.
And also to be able to have a smooth transition when you're going from the brightly lit outside to the really dark inside and coming back out again, and having all the appropriate logic for the time of day, like Ollie said, it was just a real pain in the butt.
This cave is gated off.
It's to stop spelunkers from dying without getting the keys from the Forest Service office first.
Makes sense.
Although Debbie says she lost them like 3 years ago, so maybe its mysteries are locked away for good.
Ah, damn.
Yeah, but maybe you can find another one to get your caving kicks in.
Oh, this one's so close to home and convenient, though.
Aw, sorry, Hank.
There's some guy out here.
Some guy? Wait, he's looking at you? Is he doing anything else?
I don't think so.
Henry, there's something someone should have told you about this area.
What is it?
It's outside.
Come on.
The whole thing. And people come and go as they please. It's madness.
Yeah, okay. I get it.
Look, bumping into someone in the middle of nowhere is part of the fun.
I love the little details in Firewatch's branching dialogue. There are a lot of very subtle, hard-to-notice things that Sean put in while writing it that you really couldn't notice without multiple playthroughs, but they add up to this feeling that you're talking to real people who, just like real people, kind of echo back things you said earlier, who continue in jokes that have been established, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the subtlest that I don't think I even noticed until I was rewiring the game midway through is the spooky figure who you meet towards the end of day one.
Spooky figure. If the teens call you a creep, Henry calls the guy who's putting a flashlight in his face a creep.
Right.
And he goes, "There's some guy out here creeping," or he says something like, "He's a creep out here." She's like, "A creep, Henry." He's like,
Right.
"Yeah, there's a guy who's spooking me out here. I don't like it." And I mean, I like doing stuff like that. I pay a lot of attention to the sort of infectiousness of language.
Yeah.
Especially in this office, someone will start using a turn of phrase that then I'll be at lunch with someone later, or I'll be out with Jake or whatever, and then I'll hear the phrase
Theory crafting?
through them, where it's like, like if somebody was saying, "Oh, there was a total creep outside at the bus stop," then it wouldn't be long, like 18 hours later, it would be totally conceivable to hear Jake be like, "Oh yeah, that guy's kind of a creep. I don't know if we should have him by or whatever."
Yep.
And I'd be like, "Man, okay, like that word is now like bubbling along the surface of our social network here."
Mm-hmm.
And people are like that. People are weird, sort of like passive, like non-participatory sponges sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just like putting that stuff in the writing. And you can do that in games in a way that you can't do that in other media. If you do that in like a book or something, it's so double underlined that it feels like you're making a big point as an author. But in a game, because it's player driven and it's passive, it just feels causal and the way the world works.
Damn it. Well, that trail isn't closed anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I took care of the blocked path. It was backbreaking, but, you know, anything for the service.
Well, thank you.
Anytime. I like the outhouse in that rustic, I'm roughing it sort of way.
Yeah, it's a little privacy among the seemingly endless expanse of, well, privacy.
I like it all the same. So this generator is all the power I've got out here.
Yep, it doesn't go through much gas, and, well, you don't have much in the way of electronics, so...
You know, I don't think there's any fictional character I hate more than Forrest Burns.
Henry, as an employee of the Forest Service, that is treason.
Yeah, well, he really freaked me out as a kid.
He inspired me to spend the bulk of my 30s keeping the wilderness safe.
A shrink would have a field day with you.
Thanks, Mom.
What kind of name is Forrest Burns anyway?
Well, that would be a pun, Hank. A glorious pun.
I went to junior high with a guy named Royal Butts.
Royal?
Butts.
I didn't think anyone had been named Royal since the 1850s.
Well, Royal's mom, Flo, was a bit of a trendsetter.
Flo Butts? Oh, man, that's even worse.
Yeah, well, it's still better than Forrest Burns.
Chris again here.
Hey, and Jake, congratulations, player. You have completed the teen loop.
Oh man, that's true. This is the end of what was originally called teenloop.unity, a scene file in our game engine Unity, because we thought that was just going to be the file corresponding to the
To
first
this piece of game that you've just played.
Yeah, this first big objective.
But then we kept building, so all of Firewatch is in fact saved inside of a file called teenloop.unity. So
Yep, the
know that
entire
for the
game.
rest of your play experience, you are inside of the teen loop.
Yeah. This part of the game, you probably are right now if you're listening to these commentary notes basically in sequence. The music is either about to kick in or has just kicked in. It's dark. You're finding your towers been broken into. This, I really strongly remember feeling when this went into the game and had the music, which was actually the first music implemented in the entire game. All this stuff together felt to me like the first real moment of assertive tension in the game, and it felt really crazy.
Yeah, because we had our environment system working for the first time, so the sky turned to nighttime, and our world logic allowed the tower to switch into its broken into state, just when you were off in the world for the first time. And then when that music finally came in, we're like, oh, wow, okay, this is a world that's alive and can be tense and cinematic. And all of it happened without us ever having to cut the camera. I remember we were all very proud and stoked of that.
For sure.
That was like right before we first demoed the game, I think, at the Penny Arcade Expo.
Yeah, because the end of day one was the end of the first demo.
Yeah.
Right before this, there's the moment with the creepy guy in the woods, and that was sort of a moment of tension. But that's also arguably maybe not, because it's immediately deflated by Delilah.
Right, but this you're
was like,
holy crap.
Okay, I remember feeling kind of nervous about it because it was like the game is declaring this is a tense moment, and if it falls flat, we have failed. We can't like make a joke to diffuse it. And I think it basically worked, and it was a real relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ba, 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 ba.
What can I do for you?
Well, my typewriter is on the ground outside of my tower.
You right?
Yeah, look, the wind? No. How the hell?
You should get inside.
Fuck me. Someone broke in.
Hey, what?
They wrecked the place. Threw my typewriter out the window. Motherfucker!
Holy shit. I'll let the Forest Service know what happened.
My fucking sheets are gone.
They stole your sheets? That's just mean.
Yeah, it sucks. The place is trashed. I can't believe this shit. You hear anything yet? was fast.
Yeah, well, do you have any idea who could have done this?
Maybe that guy I saw in the canyon, but I don't know why the fuck he'd want to mess with my stuff.
Well, I'll have the Rangers keep an eye out for a man hiking on his own and question him if they find him. I can't believe someone would do this. I worry about bears and fires, and that's about it. And now I've got to worry about some deranged hiker going after lookouts? Great. Okay, in the morning I'm gonna call my friend Patty, who works the desk down in Cody. They keep a list of everyone who's officially been in and out of the trailhead since, I don't know, forever, and see if we can get a list of names. We won't get much, but at least if anything else happens, we can refer to it and see if anything comes up.
Thanks.
I need you to feel safe out here.
Just point me to the Forest Service weapons cache and I'll feel safer than the Pope in his little car.
Yeah, someone made the choice years ago that leaving people with infinite amounts of alone time and a gun was kind of a bad idea.
Grenades?
I'll see what I can do. Wake up! Hey, wake up!
I'm awake. What's your problem?
Our problem.
Sorry, our problem.
That storm knocked out the phone line I used to talk to the service, which means we're cut off. I tried radioing out, and that's not working either. I don't really know why that would be the case.
There's no backup?
The backup is the 2-day hike out of here.
So that's a no?
It's easier for me to send all the lookouts out to check the status of the wire in their areas. Yours is a good hike away. If you find any portion of it down, I can try to get a hold of a ranger and he'll bring someone in to fix it.
Okay, I can do that. Where is it?
Remember that cave you hiked through yesterday?
Yeah, of course.
So you're gonna want to go back there, go through it, and keep going straight to the north when you come out.
Will do.
Thanks, Hank.
It's Henry.
What, you don't like Hank?
Yeah, I don't like Hank.
But thanks rhymes with Hank.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, all right.